This is Robert Curtis. Call me Chaplain Rob. I actually just give you a message today from I'm a dad. I got 3 sons, and I think Kenton Bashore with Mariners. He a few years back, I think he was on a road trip to Texas like he does every year with his family, and I take that same road trip. I'm from Texas, so he brings up the issue about his sons, he says, "Hey, Dad, we're going off to college, and is there any advice that you would give us before we make that?" And I think Kenton was kind of surprised, being a dad, that his kids would do that, and I would be too, my sons, But I went on that road trip, and I listened to his tapes on, advice to a son, from a father to a son, and it was really good. It was helpful for me, and I encourage actually anybody out there that has some kids and they may confront that challenge themselves as a parent to get that series if you can. But I was in prayer about it, and the Lord I met Jack West out on the patio. I think he's in the recovery ministry, whatnot. Nice young man. Well, anyway, I met him out on the patio, and I says, "Hey, Jack, I kind of got a revelation on a message from the whole of Proverbs and everything. The Lord, when they asked Jesus, which is the greatest of the laws, he really narrowed down all the laws and the prophets down to 2, and he says to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, thy mind, and thy strength. That's the first one. And the second one, he says, Jesus says, the second one is likened unto the first one, is to love your neighbor as yourself. Well, why that is how can you say that you love God and hate your neighbor? So whom you see your neighbor. How can you say that you love your neighbor in whom you see, that you don't love your neighbor whom you see? You say you love God, but yet you don't love your neighbor. So it is close in terms of, like the Lord was saying. And that's all the law and the prophets, basically. And Jesus didn't do a lot of, I guess, excessive speaking. He spoke. He really, pretty much, he would go right to the heart of the issue, and tell you exactly how it is, And that's one thing wonderful about the Lord. He never had to second guess him on those kind of things. And the other thing is what I said, I had a revelation of that, and it was really 3 things that kind of brought together all of the Proverbs as it relates to your advice to a son. And I was telling Jack West that. I says, I told my boys it's basically 3 things that you need to really be concerned about and consider. Number 1 is what you think about, what you process, what you have in your mind, what is on your thoughts. Keep your thoughts on positive, giving, caring thoughts, and things that are in that sense. And that the second one to that is likened to the first, from out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks. So it's kind of like the focus part is your heart and your mouth, and then second one's what comes out of your mouth. First is pay attention to what you're thinking about and focusing on, and number 2 is pay attention to your words, what comes out of your mouth. If it's not giving life, it's taking life. You got to be positive, uplifting, kind of be edifying sometimes. And I haven't been that really with Mariners. They kicked me out, guys, but it's not because I don't want to be a part of it, but it's just one of those things that leadership does. It doesn't mean that I have issues with the guys or some of the leadership. It's just that the ones, I guess, making policies and decisions or doing things that are unchristlike. That's where I say that kind of Pharisee mentality, you need to get away from it, people. But the third thing is who you hang around, who you associate with. So I tell my boys, pay attention to what you think about, what you focus on. Number 2, comes out of your mouth. Number 3, who you hang around. Now, we should not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. I believe that's true. because it becomes an anchor to not only just our testimony, but it becomes a burden on us. That's there are times that we have burden, that we pray for those that are in need and stuff, but there is a point of not being yoked with unbelievers, hanging out in bars, or people that are real heavy on the profanity train. We shouldn't be indulging ourselves in that environment. So it's not just the people, it's the environment that is tied to them. And we can pray for them, we can be a witness to them, we can do a lot of things. But being unequally yoked, and you know that as a Christian, that sometimes you might walk into a room and you feel the strife and the tension might be around one person. I mean, it's there, and that's true in the Word. It says, a child of God shall not strive. We should not be following ways of strife. So if you're around somebody who's real strifeful and everything, and I'm going to get to that with the alcohol thing. Having a glass of wine is one thing at dinner, but don't be filled with wine, whereas in excess. And I talked to my boys about that time, and there's a lot more spiritual things going on there with you ever notice people that are drinking alcohol and everything? A lot of times that's their lifestyle. A lot of them are always in a fuss. They're always in a fuss about something. They're always strife-ridden or whatever, and they feel more comfortable being in a fight than being at peace. And a lot of that comes out in that, being in that environment that those people are in, as well as the alcohol involved. Now, that's overdoing it. I think alcohol, they say unleavened bread. When we partake of the unleavened bread, when the children of Israel were leaving, put your traveling coats on, and they ate the unleavened bread. The thing is, with the leaven is the yeast, and yeast representing sin is part of that. So you want unleavened bread so that it's pure. So as a symbology. Now, what's the waste product of yeast? It's alcohol. So, so is it any surprising thing that when people take alcohol, they kind of act crazy? So, trying to stay away from that as much as possible, or pare down on that significantly, and basically those are kind of the four elements there: environment and people. I think basically that's three mainly. I would say the third one would be an environment and people. Be careful about the being unequally yoked with unbelievers or strife-riven people and things like that, because it's not you going down into the mud with them is not helping them. Sometimes we have the rope on one end and we should try to pull them out of the mud. Okay, and I just want to give that little thing, that something I told Jack on the patio one day, and I don't know if he remembers or whatever, but there's a little note from in a synopsis of what Kenton covered on that tape series of a father going to Texas with his sons, advice to his sons, and I still encourage you guys to get it. And this was kind of a Cliff Note version of that, I guess. And y'all have a blessed day. And this is Chaplain Rob. And thank you very much.